This is a video tutorial on how to solve a quadratic equation using the minus b formula. The previous video to this, I solved quite a simple quadratic equation using the minus b formula. This one's a little more complicated because it has fractions as a coefficient. So if it's your first time doing using the minus b formula, I advise just checking that video before, and if you have and you're comfortable and just want a little bit more of a challenge, then this is perfect for you. So the quadratic we're using is 5 over 2x squared plus 11 over 12x equals 1 over 6. So in the top right hand corner I have the general form for a quadratic, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So this might not look exactly like that, but you'll see how we'll draw the connection between the two in order to use the minus b formula. So what I like to do, I'll just do it over here, is when using the minus b formula, I like to write it explicitly because it's easier to deal with. So I'll just write it here, minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and the whole thing is divided by 2a, not just the square root part, the whole thing. Alright, so once I've done that, generally what I like to do is before I delve into the minus b formula, I like to write out what I'm going to insert into it, write it out explicitly, so therefore it's easier to visualize. Okay, so we have an equation with a's, b's and c's. What are them a's, b's and c's? Well, they're just the coefficients of the quadratic up here. So firstly, what I'm going to do is rewrite the quadratic. 5 over 2 x squared plus 11 over 12x, and then I'm just going to minus 1/6 from each side, so bringing it over equals 0. Alright, so here's the quadratic here. Alright, so before we use the minus b on it, you can see that if we started inserting these fraction values into it, it would just explode, it will become a mess, and it's just not very efficient. So what we're going to do is we're going to simplify, we're going to tidy up this quadratic such that the coefficients are just an integer value, they're not fractions. So looking at the denominators here, I can see that these all divide into 12. So if I multiply across the whole equation by 12, I should get integer values as the coefficients. So I'm going to multiply this whole left hand side by 12, and whatever I do on the left I have to do to the right. Alright, so 12 multiplied by 5 over 2, that's going to be 60 over 2 x squared. 12 multiplied by 11 is 132 over 12, and then 12 by minus 1 is minus 12 over 6 equals 12 by 0 is 0. Alright, well 60 divided by 2 is 30 x squared. Oh, don't forget your x. 132 divided by 12 is 11, and then minus 12 over 6 is minus 2 equals 0. Alright, so now we have something that's a lot more visually pleasing, let's say, because now we can work with this and we can use the values of the coefficients in this quadratic a lot more simply than if we tried to use these fraction values when it comes to using the minus b. Alright, my next step that I like to do is write down your a, b's and c's. So your a is the coefficient of the x squared, so that's going to be 30. Your b is the coefficient of the x, so that's going to be 11, and your c is the constant value, which is minus 2. Okay, so now we have our equation that consists of a's, b's and c's. We've simplified the complicated quadratic into a simplified quadratic and then taken the a, b and c from the quadratic. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pick these values up and we're going to place them into the minus b formula, and then that's going to give us the resulting x value, which is what we're trying to do. Okay, so now let's use the minus b formula. X is equal to minus b, and we know that b is 11, so that's going to be minus 11. And then we have the plus and minus. We have a b squared, so that's going to be 11 squared, which is going to be 121. So that's 11 squared. And we have a minus 4, and our a value is 30. And our c value is minus 2. And then the whole thing is divided by 2 times a. A is 30, 2 times 30 is 60. Minus 11 plus or minus, now we're just going to simplify. So we'll keep the 1, 2 on there for now. We have a minus 2 by 30, which is going to be minus 60, and minus 60 by minus 4 is going to be positive 240. And then 2 by 30, as we had before, 60 stays there. And we're going to simplify once more. So we're going to just go over here. So x is going to equal minus 11 plus or minus the square root of 121 plus 240 is 361. And that's all divided by 60. All right, so now we've broken this down to the last square root. So once we finish evaluating the square root, we'll have the square root of 361. Square root of 361 is 19. So that's going to be positive 19 over 60, x1. And then x2 is going to be equal to minus 11 minus 19 over 60. Now, if you hadn't seen the previous video, I kind of explained why we have our two separate values. So in summary, when you get a square root value, you have a positive and a minus value. So if I say, what's the square root of 9? Just saying positive 3 is incorrect. It's positive and negative 3. Well, if you multiply 3 by 3, two positives, you'll get your positive 9. But if you multiply two negatives, minus 3 by minus 3, you'll also get positive 9. So when you're getting the square root, you have to take that into consideration. So therefore, when we do get our square root of this value, whatever it may be, we have to take the positive of that square root and the negative of the square root. And that's why we have two roots, one being the positive and one being the negative. So then simplifying x1, that's going to equal plus 19, that's going to be a positive 8 over 60. And then we have x2 minus 19, or minus 11 minus 19 is minus 30 over 60. And then finally, we have a final x1 value, which is going to be 2 over 15. And then we have another our x2 value is going to be minus a half. Okay, so we found our value, our x values for this quadratic using the minus b formula. So if you want to verify that these two values are indeed the correct roots of this quadratic, what you would do is you would put x1 in for, you should use this one actually because we've simplified it, and because this is the exact same as that, it's just simplified. This will be a lot easier to use when checking is this correct. So what you need to do is you just plug this value in for x, evaluate it, and you should get a balanced equation, which means that it'll be 0 equals 0. And then once that's verified, verify the second one where you would insert minus a half in for x and do the same procedure. But yeah, hopefully you understood the steps. And when you have a complicated quadratic such as this one, my advice would be not to go straight into the minus b formula. It would be to simplify the equation such that your coefficients are going to be integer values, and then go into your procedure of using the minus b formula. So yeah, that's the video. I hope you enjoyed it. A like and a subscription would be great. It's a new channel, so just trying to get it off the ground. And yeah, see you in the next video.